All right, we're live. I'm Greg Gallant, CEO of the Shorty Awards, and I'm really excited to be here today with Guy Kawasaki, Shorty Award winner. He's actually in a Airbnb right now, so he might not have his Shorty Award with him, but I did bring an exact replica so you can see it. He won last April, so congratulations, Guy.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I'm
you.
sure you don't need too much introduction, but I'll take the liberty. Where Guy is currently, as you can see in his Google Plus Hangout lower third, Chief Evangelist at Canva. He was once legendarily the Chief Evangelist at another startup called Apple, and is also the author of 10 books, including APE, which stands for Author, Publisher, Entrepreneur, which I'm sure a lot of us feel like, What the Plus, Enchantment, and Art of the Start. Guy got his BA from Stanford University, an MBA from UCLA, and an honorary doctorate from Babson College. Guy, thanks a lot for making the time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's unusual circumstances for me being in an Airbnb, making a hangout. So,
Well, I think that this should be a whole new product line for them. They
you
should
think?
partner with Google, and they could offer Air Studios.
Yeah, I think so. It would be fun.
Kind of works nicely with the Google On Air idea.
That's right. If I could just get a car to just drive me to the Airbnb, I'd have everything. So,
That's right. We'll pull in the full circle of sharing economy right
yeah,
on to your private jet arranged through some yet to be launched startup.
that's right.
So, Guy, I'd love to start out. So you won a Shorty Award,
Yes.
and, I remember back even when we started the Shorty Awards in 2008, you were one of kind of the first people to really take social media, Twitter at the time, by storm. Now you have, I was counting up the numbers, 1.4 million followers on Twitter, but that pales in comparison to your Google Plus following of 6.4 million. Then you even have 1 million followers on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So I just love to hear the story. Like, how'd you kind of come to use social media, and what's kind of drawn you all into it?
So the truth of this story is I first heard about Twitter, and the first thing I did when I heard about Twitter is I went to Twitter's homepage. And back then, if you go to Twitter's homepage, probably still true today, you see people saying, my cat rolled over, my dog, threw up, the
I'm
line
going
at
to delete
Starbucks
my
is
tweet from
long.
this morning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I read that, and I said, well, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. And then I thought, well, geez, I can send email, I can send text messages, I can do chat. Like, why in the world would I need Twitter? And then somebody said, well, Guy, you should search for yourself or search for stuff that interests you. And that's when the light went on, that I could see what people were saying about me and what people were saying about Apple and this kind of stuff. And so I fell in love with Twitter. Uh, Same kind of initial reaction to Google Plus. What the hell is this? And then I noticed that the comments were so good on Google Plus, and I loved the aesthetics of Google Plus. And so I just became, I wouldn't say the first adopter. I'm always following Robert Scoble, but I just loved social media. For me, it's not even the social aspect, and people hate when I say this. For me, social media is a marketing platform. And this is a marketing platform that's fast and free and ubiquitous. I mean, that's the holy grail of marketing. And so when I saw what you could do with Twitter and Facebook and Pinterest and Google Plus and now LinkedIn, it was like I died and went to heaven. It's a great time to be a marketing person.
Yeah, that kind of leads me to one of my questions. I was
Yeah.
reading your blog post, which I think was actually an update to a much earlier blog post about the art of being an evangelist.
Yeah.
And I know you were way ahead of the curve. Now everyone calls themselves an evangelist, but you were.
Well,
You were
Jesus was before me, but yeah.
That's right. Well, my question was, like, I imagine it's hard to imagine now being an evangelist without having social media.
Yes.
Guessing for anyone under 20, it's just impossible to imagine, like, you can't pull out your phone and talk to thousands of people or
Right.
millions of people immediately. What is it? So, I was just curious, like, what was it like being an evangelist before social media in BC, and then how's that changed today?
Yeah, this is probably before you were born. Okay, so in 1983 is when I began, evangelizing anything. It was Macintosh. And so in 1983, the state of the art was you made face-to-face meetings. You drove to somebody, or you flew to somebody, or somebody flew to you or drove to you. So meetings were totally analog in conference rooms. You whipped out your Macintosh, got them to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and you did a demo. If you were really high tech, you called people on the phone. If you were really, really high tech, you had a fax. Oh my God, and I remember times where, like, Trip Hawkins, who was then the CEO of Electronic Arts, he had one of these early cell phones, one of the first people to have a cell phone. Back then, a cell phone was just as big as a car is today. And he called me from the parking lot of Apple, and I said, "Wow, I mean, this is the future of cell phone." And so that's what it was like. I mean, if you go back to the 1930s, where arguably one of the great evangelists, Dale Carnegie, lived, his idea of evangelism was you fill a hotel ballroom full of people. And he couldn't fly around, he couldn't drive around, he couldn't do a lot of things. But from 1930 to the internet, not too much has changed. And then when we got email, that was a whole new market. And then when we got social media, that just made it explode. And like what we're doing right now, a Google Hangout, that I don't know if it's thousands of people, but it's hundreds of people are watching this. It's inconceivable. I mean, you just couldn't even think of doing something like this. So it's got a lot. The technology has gotten so much better.
Yeah, and the idea that you're in an Airbnb on your laptop. I'm here
Yeah.
at our headquarters, but just on the same laptop I use for work, and I think we're both using the Sun or some concoction of whatever lamp this poor
Yeah.
host had
And
before you got in there.
Airbnb. Well, and if we were to do this before in the old days, first of all, I wouldn't have done it because I would not have flown to New York to do this, right?
I'm
I
hurt
would
by
have.
it. You wouldn't have flown to New York for me?
No, to be honest, I mean, if it was ABC, NBC, or CBS, which were the only three stations or networks that mattered, right? Because there were the only three. So if you got invited by ABC, NBC, or CBS, you flew to New York. But other than that, you sucked. You didn't do anything. So yeah, it's a great time to be a marketing person.
And so, yeah, I'd love to hear more about that kind of evolution with it. First of all, Canva is very cool. I was playing with it this morning, and just the ability to create images without needing Photoshop is a beautiful thing. We're always struggling
Liberating.
to get an image out there. And
Yeah.
and so tell me, like I was reading also one of your blog posts, you were saying that you kind of have this very comfortable life as an author and speaker, and imagine life is good and straightforward versus the harsh, crazy life of being in a startup that has
Yeah.
caused me to lose all my hair.
Yeah.
Why would you put yourself through that again?
Because I think that Canva is so great. I was, and I still do have a happy existence, but I didn't have to go work for a company, for a startup. But the product was so compelling, and you only get so many chances in your life to work for compelling products. I've been fortunate. I worked in the Macintosh division, which it's hard to top that at all. And so from the Macintosh division, you can first of all, if you work in a Macintosh division, you can coast for quite a while on your reputation, arguably decades. And so when I found Canva, or Canva found me, or more accurately, Peg Fitzpatrick, who helps me with social media, found Canva for me, I just fell in love because just like...
So that's how it happened. Your social media guy basically started using it and said, hey guy, this is cool, check it out.
Essentially, yeah, she's a gal, but not a guy.
Nice.
But yeah, essentially, Peg found it and told me, "Guy, get on this." So, that's how it happened. And Macintosh democratized computing, and I'm proud to say I was part of that revolution. And I think that Canva is going to democratize design, and I am proud to be on that revolution too. So, you
So
don't get many of these chances in your life.
And so when you signed up for this,
Hmm.
I imagine there's some degree to which, you know, you think back to the lessons you learned at Apple, and on one hand, I'm
Yeah.
sure, what better place to be? On the other hand, as you were saying, the world's changed. So how do you go about thinking about it? Were you thinking like, hey, I'm going to try the old tactics and drive around and give demos and do the new thing with social media, or I'm throwing out the playbook, all the
Well,
tactics that I used to use, and try all
sure.
new tactics?
Well, the principles remain the same. Okay, so for evangelism, one of the most important principles is what I call Guy's golden touch. And Guy's golden touch is not whatever I touch turns to gold. Guy's golden touch is whatever is gold, Guy touches. So, principle number one of great evangelism is only evangelize good stuff, because it is so hard to evangelize crap. So that's number one. Canva is gold. Number two is with evangelism, you don't bludgeon people into becoming your customers. You have a much higher respect for their, intellectual ability, and so the thinking is you show them, you enable them to use it, to test drive it, and then you let them decide. And so that is a principle that we used back in the 80s with Macintosh, and I'm going to use it now with Canva. So, the onboarding experience is very easy, very smooth. There's, no charge. We don't ask you for your credit card up front. We don't ask you to make a commitment. And it's all about the product. And one of the key components of Canva evangelism is webinars like this, that we're trying to take it to the people. So whereas I would have had to have flown to New York to give you a demo of Canva before, now I can do it on a Hangout, or I could do it, go to webinar, or I could do it with Skype. There are a lot of ways to do this now. And then, we also have the archival features of YouTube. So if you didn't see it live, you can see it later.
That's right, and we will definitely be posting this to YouTube. It's we found it just with the Shorty Awards too to be just such a powerful way to create content, especially
Hmm.
for us when the awards themselves aren't going on. It's been a great way to extend it. And that leads into my next question with what you're doing for Canva and like what other businesses can take away from this. What tactics do you find are the kind of most effective for businesses like Canva that are startups or small
Yeah.
businesses trying to get the word out that they exist? They're not yet Apple, and they don't have a Steve Jobs leading it.
Well, Apple doesn't have Steve Jobs leading it either. So,
True. Hopefully Tim's viewing.
yeah, yeah. Well, I think the most important lesson is if you're an entrepreneur, at some point you're going to ship later than you think, because you're deluding yourself about how great your programmers are and how they're going to finish for the first time in the history of man on time. But, let's get beyond that. But from the moment you decide you're an entrepreneur or an author or a musician or an artist, you need to start building your social media platform, because it's going to take 6 to 12 months to do this. So if you think that life is serial, where you create your product and then you start marketing it, you will find that life is parallel, that you need to create your product and build the platform and market it and sell it and support it at the same time and recruit and raise money. So all those things you're pushing down the road at the same time. It's not, well, first I'll raise money, then I'll make the product, then I'll sell it, then I'll support it, and then I'll market it. It doesn't work like that. You have to do all these things at once. And many, many people don't realize this. They think life is serial, but life is not serial. Life is parallel.
So you're written over 10 books. You are a serious author, but what about the people who are watching and they're thinking, this is great, but now I have to create all this content and I'm not a writer, I'm not an author. How do I do all this?
Well, first of all, there are two kinds of content, right? So there is creation, which is the blogging, you're writing it, and all that. There's also curation, where you find other people's good stuff. And I'm telling you, curation is just as valuable as creation, because there's more good stuff than people can find. So curation is a very useful skill. And I can't create that much content. When I'm writing a book in particular, I'm pouring everything into the book. I'm not trying to write these 1,000-word blog posts. And so at that time, I'm curating. I'm trying to find great stuff that people would not have found by themselves. So that's number one, is to become a great curator. But the bigger question is, you kind of intimated, well, I'm not Guy Kawasaki, I'm not Apple, I don't have a platform, how do I do all this social media? And the answer is tough shit. I mean, it is a lot of work. And so, you could say that if you total up all my followers, I have about, I don't know, 8 million or so. You could say, oh, Guy, you're lucky you have 8 million followers and, you did this very quickly. Well, the way I look at it is it took me 30 years to get 8 million followers. And so, freaking cry me a river. Tell me when you work 30 years and then you're complaining it's hard. Then you can complain to me. But now, I mean, what? You just graduated from school and you're complaining that you don't have a marketing platform? Life's a bitch.
And so when these companies start out, like which platforms? So let's say you do have that person complain to you, you give them this
Smack them
speech,
around.
smack them around. They
Yeah,
learn that they're just a grasshopper and have
that's right.
much to learn.
And I'm Kung Fu.
That's right. So they're looking now and they're seeing, well, there's what are there, probably at least a dozen different
Hmm.
social networks they could be on. They could be writing a blog. They could be, there's so
Right.
many options for what they could do. Where would you tell them to start? Like, which would you advise one particular social network or some
Sure.
combination or?
So the reality is that I think you need to be on Google Plus because it is part of Google, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest if your product or service is at all aesthetically, beautiful, and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the dark horse, but LinkedIn is, the level of discussion on LinkedIn is so serious. So basically, I've named, 4 or 5 services, and of course, you could say, well, I can't do 4 or 5 services. And again, my answer is that's what it takes. You need to man up here. And one of the ways that you can, sort of cheat is I'm not implying that you have to go and manually post to Twitter, then manually post to LinkedIn, then manually post to Facebook, manually post to Google Plus. There are tools like Hootsuite and Sprout Social and Buffer where you write a post once and you deploy it 4 or 5 times. So, there are ways to cheat to do that. And you have to do that. That's just the way it is.
And speaking of like how you go about it tactically, being someone who's busy,
Hmm.
what are all the ways you found to cheat, as you put it? Like what does your infrastructure look like
Okay.
for creating the output that you have on social media?
Well, first of all, I do at any given point, I'm using either Hootsuite or Buffer or Sprout Social. And I bounce between those three because none of them do exactly what I want. And I wish somebody would say, okay, Guy, I'm going to write you the ultimate posting machine. And I would tell them exactly how to do it. So every one of them has something that I like, and every one of them doesn't do something that I really need. So I kind of bounce between those three. Uh, so that's one, to do that. Second, I have the amazing Peg Fitzpatrick helping me. So I have a person who I think is just the best social media person in the world. And I would put her up against entire agencies in terms of social media. So one is, a second way to cheat is have help. Ralph Lauren doesn't design every shirt and every dress by himself. What a surprise! So Guy Kawasaki doesn't post everything himself. He has help. So get help is the second thing. And the third thing, well, there is no third thing. It is basically work hard and cheat. Those are the only two things.
That's great. We have to put that on the Shorty Award homepage is like our if we steal that slogan from you, work hard and cheat.
Right. Not necessarily in that order.
So we did ask for questions from our listeners, and we asked on Twitter, where, by the way, for anyone tuning in, the hashtag is pound shorty hangout. So we'll be looking out for more. I'm going to start with with the question that stood out to me. I asked, what should I ask Guy Kawasaki? I got a response saying, ask about ask him what he thinks of your Twitter avatar. It was from @GuyKawasaki. And for anyone who doesn't know, here's my Twitter avatar. I'll tell you the story really quick. I signed up
Yeah.
very early on to Twitter to get @Gregory, and at the time it was just a bunch of tweets from Robert Scoble. I had a similar reaction to you, and I was nervous about uploading my real photo to it, so I uploaded a photo I took of this roadside landmark on Long Island. It's a life-size, or basically a duck the size of a store they used to sell ducks out of. And I haven't changed it since, but I'd love to hear what you think of
Okay.
my avatar, and maybe I can get a social media makeover out of this.
Okay, so first of all, if you were a 14-year-old kid, I would tell you cute avatar, okay? But you're not. So the purpose of an avatar, in my humble opinion, is to position yourself as someone who's likable and trustworthy and competent, none of which your avatar does. I think an avatar should basically be a person's face. It should be asymmetrical, using the rule of thirds. So your eyes are at the intersection of, these two lines coming down. And it should be a Duchenne smile where you're showing crow's feet. And basically you want people to look at that avatar and say, huh, this looks like a friendly, competent, smart, trustworthy person. I should follow this person. As opposed to looking at a picture of a penguin or a duck. So that's my 25 cents worth of advice makeover. It is your avatar, and then your profile page and the cover photo or the album photo is arguably the two most important data points. People are going to make a snap judgment, and I think the world of social media, in terms of making snap judgments, to use an online dating analogy, there is Tinder, right? So you look at Tinder and you see a picture and you swipe right or you swipe left, hot or not, to use another online dating site name. So Tinder is slash right or slash right, left. On the other hand, there's also eHarmony, where you fill out 29 fields of psychographic information. Well, social media is Tinder. It's not eHarmony. So people are going to make an instant decision, and you have to give them the data to make the decision that you want, which is this person is worth following.
I'm going to have to talk to my social media people about doing a makeover here.
Peg and I will do a makeover for you if you want.
Oh, perfect. I'll fly out for a photo shoot. All right, so our next question comes from Josh Speedy at Diamond Candles. Please discuss the best content types to share on Twitter versus Google Plus versus Facebook.
Yeah, there are so-called experts who believe that each kind of service has different kind of content requirements. I'm not one of those people. I think good content is good content. And so obviously you have 140 characters in Twitter and you have 100,000 characters or whatever you have in Google Plus. So that is some change. But for me, the big test is what I call the reshare test. And the way the reshare test works is that whatever you post should be of such high quality that you believe the people who see it will reshare it. And an analogy I like to use is if you go to a restaurant and it's adequate and the service is adequate, you leave a tip. You leave a tip, well, this is in America anyway. You leave a tip just because it's socially acceptable. You give them a tip. You read that they're only making $10 an hour, so you give them a tip. So it's not a negative because you're not stiffing them. On the other hand, it's kind of more a convention than a real act of praise and an act of appreciation. On the other hand, if you go to a restaurant and the food is fantastic and the service is fantastic, okay, so you might leave a bigger tip, but also you would tell your friends to go eat there, okay? So the test for social media posts is, are you telling your friends to go eat there? Not that you just gave a tip, not that you gave $1 to the valet who brought your car without crashing it. Are you telling people to go eat at that restaurant? Are you telling people that you should read this post that Guy originally shared? I am risking my reputation by sharing a post that Guy initially shared because I believe what he shared is good. You are risking your reputation on my post. That's the test. And this can be information, it can be analysis, it can be assistance, or it can be entertainment. But it's one of those four things. So that's the test that people should aspire to. And by that test, then it doesn't matter if it's Twitter or Facebook or Google Plus or LinkedIn or Pinterest or Instagram. The test is the same. Is it worth resharing?
We have another question from Umar Khan at Umar_Khan. This is a whole other question about using underscores in your
Yeah.
ad handle that you can address later maybe, but it's how do you see the future of inbound marketing? I guess, in general, I'd love to just get your take on that whole kind of school of thought and
Well,
buzzword of inbound marketing that's evolved.
well, first define inbound marketing for me so that we're on the same page about what we're talking about.
So I'll do my best to speak for Umar. I think, my understanding, just doing anything you can, creating content, etc., to bring people to you so that, I guess, in essence, when you're doing your sales, people are coming to you rather than you're going out and cold calling people.
Okay, so I am 100% in support of that. I think the world is turned into one big content marketing challenge. For Canva, for example, we are constantly blogging about how to create great designs, how to optimize their social media, not necessarily about Canva, but about the topic of design and the topic of social media. And the thinking there is that if you come to trust Canva for design information and social media information, and you reshare our posts because the content is so valuable, you will broaden our exposure, we will build our credibility, and if you believe in a brand for information, assistance, entertainment, analysis, then you would probably believe in a brand for making your graphics. And so, if I were, let's take it out of the world of Canva. Let's say that I was running social media for an airline, all right? So you're running this social media for an airline, and basically you want more people to fly in your airline, duh. So what do? Do you constantly brag about, well, we have the most on-time, flights in America, or we've been rated #1 by the Airline, Passenger Association of America? Okay, so basically you're bragging all the time, or do you say, well, here's 10% off your next drink, or whatever. I don't think that's optimal. I think what you should do is, let's say you're an airline that services, Hawaii. Well, if I were the airline, I would constantly be posting stuff about, this is 10 restaurants you have to eat at in Hawaii, or these are 10 places off the beaten path that tourists don't go to that you must go to in Hawaii, or this is the best place in Hawaii for yoga. These kinds of high content posts that are getting reshared that build your credibility, and that's, to me, inbound marketing.
That kind of leads into, we got a very specific question from @KevinAndrews asking, what are your thoughts on using WordPress for website design? And I'm also going to kind of broaden the question to when you're when you're creating this content like you talk about, are there kind of technical things you really need to think about getting right, like what content management system you use, or how you convert leads, or is it just make the content and the rest works itself out?
I am much more in the latter camp than the former camp. So first of all, I do use WordPress. I don't use WordPress. I mean, the stuff I have is hosted on WordPress, but I don't consider myself a WordPress expert at all. This is kind of a decision that was made, and I continue to use it. So WordPress seems to be the de facto standard, and it's got this amazing collection of plugins. So hallelujah, I love WordPress. Okay, I have a site called Hassle. Do you know Peter Shankman?
Yeah, I actually know Peter very well.
Okay, so Peter Shankman had Haro, right? Help a reporter out. So you'll love this story. So one day, Peg and I, we had this system where we always sort of mark good articles for posting later. And in my particular case, it was because I often wake up in the middle of the night and I whip out my Nexus 7 and I start reading stuff, and I say, oh, this is a good thing to post. But I'm not going to do it at 3 a.m., so I just need to mark it so that when I wake up 5 hours later, and I'm more cogent, I can actually curate the thing and send it out. So I just needed this tickler system. And so Peg and I had this system where we had a Google Plus circle where it was only me, or we had emails that we're, sending to ourselves with these things that we should post later. And finally, I told Peg, Peg, we should have a better system where we can communicate to each other the posts we think we should do. But since we're, such great curators, why don't we make this list of what we're about to post public so that other people can also do this? And so we created a source, and we call it HASO, H-A-S-O, which is Help a Socialist Out. So we publish this every day. I don't know how I got on that topic. Anyway, so I love WordPress, and as far as sort of the tools and the mechanisms, like I said, I am much more in the camp of just post good stuff. It's not about, I'm not a big believer in black magic that, like for me, SEO, all of SEO boils down to one thing: post good shit. Basically, that's it. I don't care what words you have in the H3 headers, and I don't care, I don't care if you're dumpster diving behind Matt Cutz's house, and you're figuring out every Google algorithm. I mean, I know a lot of people at Google. I've been to Google a lot. They have thousands of PhDs in computer science trying to figure out their algorithm. And if you think you sitting there tweaking your H3 keywords are going to fake those people out so that Google puts your shit at the top of the search, man, you are wrong. It's just not going to happen. So it seems to me SEO is very simple. You post good shit, and Google is in the business of finding good shit. What else do I have to say? So I'm not into that kind of trickery and all that. The one tip I will say, I believe that every social media post has to have either an embedded video or a picture. Everyone. And I don't mean a tiny little picture that Google Plus or Facebook sucked in. I mean a manually placed picture that's 500 to 700 pixels wide. Twitter now, you can tweet with 4 pictures, not just one. Every post should have a picture or an embedded video, which is kind of what led me to the love affair with Canva, because Canva makes these great graphics for posting like that. And there's another aspect of this, which is if you truly want to be clean in terms of copyright infringement, it's a source of great debate. But if you read a great article and it has a great picture with it from Reuters, you cannot save as that picture, or you cannot capture that picture and post it 500 pixels wide, because you have just violated Reuters or iStock Photo or AP or Getty's copyright. And so one of the beautiful things about Canva is, you create a text basic graphic and you don't violate copyright. So I'm really aware of that kind of stuff because I would be a big target for violating copyright. So anyway, the tip is, forget whether it's Canva or not, but you always have to have a video or a graphic.
That's great advice. We found similar with many other Shorty winners and
Yeah.
with our own social channels.
Can I give you one more tip?
Please.
Everybody should repeat their posts. In particular, Twitter. Twitter is the most effective and most accepting of this practice. It's very tricky to repeat your posts on Google Plus or Facebook. I mean, that's a little more risky. But Twitter, I repeat my posts, many of my posts, 4 times, 8 hours apart. And with total certainty, I can tell you that I get 4x the click-throughs because I posted it 4 times. And so, lots of
and that's
social...
the exact same tweet without any tweaks to it?
Exact same tweet. And it's done automatically. And a lot of social media experts, they're like, having freaking coronaries right now. They're saying, "Guy, it's like social media. It's supposed to be you personally. You're supposed to handcraft artisanal tweets. This is kumbaya. This is you being you. This is being open, and this is being transparent. And you shouldn't automate. You shouldn't use virtual assistants. This should be you, because this is social." Well, bullshit. I mean, this is a marketing platform. And I'm telling you, I get 4 times more traffic by tweeting 4 times. So it's an IQ test. Would you rather have 1,000 clicks or 4,000 clicks?
And I guess tactically, I guess you're buffering it with other tweets in between, right? Because
Oh
for
yeah,
everyone
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
uses.
yeah. I mean, they're 8 hours apart, um, and to me, the concept that your tweet or your post is so freaking valuable and so wonderful that people are going to scroll back through the 50 million other tweets that happened since yours, and they're going to find your tweet. You are hallucinating. I mean, if you listen to NPR repeats Terry Gross 2 or 3 times a day. This is Terry freaking Gross. I mean, this is, fresh air, not your stupid tweet about your cat rolling over. So if NPR can repeat Terry Gross, I mean, you have to repeat your valuable tweets too. I, People are not scrolling back. They're not going to find it. I mean, CNN runs the same story over and over. ESPN runs the same top 25, home runs of the day over and over. It's because not everybody is online at the same time. And nobody that I know TiVo's, ESPN to catch the ESPN from 8 a.m. You got to repeat.
So I want to respect your time. We've gone over a little bit
That's okay.
already, although I'm completely rethinking my social strategy, both my avatar, how often I tweet, when I tweet, what tools I use. But let me
You don't,
close
you
with
don't, you
what.
don't get to win a shorty unless you take chances. You know what I'm saying?
That's right. Well, I'm not a winner myself. I just did it. I'll also show you we have a Lego version of the shorties here
That's
too,
cool.
just to try to inspire more shorty envy and get the next person who takes these tips to go for a shorty. But let me close with one more question from
Okay.
Twitter. This one's from Warren Reed uh, at Urban Mask, interesting handle, asking you, do you see the difference in using social media to market to your customer versus building a relationship with them?
What's the difference?
Well, so channel Warren. Let's say, I mean, I guess there's a, people might feel there's a difference between, traditionally marketing where you say, hey, I've got this message to get out there and I'm just going to tweet it out to you versus building a relationship where maybe you're at replying with people or interacting with them or doing things kind of
Oh,
directly with customers to build a relationship.
well, when I asked you what's the difference, I was trying to be a smart-ass rhetorical. I mean, basically, I'm saying that. Okay, so I made this whole diatribe against, being kumbaya and all that kind of stuff, right? But that's not for me. That's not me saying you need to be a pimp. Okay, so for social media to be effective, you have to do certain things like post good stuff. You also have to respond to comments, and you have to. Now, I'm not saying you're building a relationship because you want to be kumbaya. I'm saying you have to build a relationship because it makes good business sense. So that's why the question, I think, is not really a question in a sense, because if you want to do social media marketing well, you have to build a relationship. If you want to build a relationship with hundreds of thousands of people all over the world, free, cheap, and fast, then you have to use social media. So to me, they're just, opposite sides of the same coin. They're not, you can't use social media well and not build a relationship. And you can't build a relationship without social media today if you want to do it in a big way.
And can you tell me a bit about how do you manage that? Like, you told me about how you post to social media,
Yeah.
but you must get so many app replies, so many comments on Google Plus. Do
Yeah.
you try to respond to all of them? Do you read all of them? Do you only pick the smartest ones? Do you block off an hour a day to do it? How do you manage all that?
Um, I have tried, Hootsuite has the ability to respond to tweets, and not only Hootsuite but Sprout Social. Buffer doesn't do this. So there are ways that they put everything together. I don't know. For some reason, when everything is together, it just doesn't appeal to me for some reason. So what I do is I use TweetDeck, and with TweetDeck, I am constantly searching for mentions of me and Canva, and I try to swoop in and answer as many as I can. For for Google Plus and Facebook, where I only make 5 to 10 posts a day, I go and check every one of those manually every once in a while. Um, I am usually writing a book at any given moment, and so this is a deep, dark, dirty secret. So as a writer, one of the things you try to do is you try to avoid what you really should do, which is writing your book, by defocusing yourself with social media. So whenever I know I should whenever I know I should be writing, I always say, well, let me just check Google Plus and Facebook and TweetDeck first. And then an hour later, I say, oh, there goes an hour. You should have been writing. So, for me, it's partially my just OCD-ness that the thought that somebody mentioned me or commented and needs a response and I haven't done it, this just bugs the shit out of me. It offends my sense of obligation to, respond. So it's partly OCD. It's partly that I am a masochist. I just love to work hard, and it's partly that it's a good distraction. I find it very enjoyable.
I love that strategy of try to do something else and then make social media your procrastination device from it to be successful at social media. But that
Well,
might be the most
some
advice I've
people
heard.
some people play online games. I do social media. They should hook me up to an MRI when I'm on Twitter and Facebook and Google Plus. See what part of my brain lights up.
I'm sure. I think Airbnb just added that as an add-on service, so
Yeah.
we'll ask them to bring it there stat.
All righty.
Well, thanks so much for making the time, guy. I know you're in sunny LA. You could be on the
Yep.
beach right now surfing, and you came to this Google Hangout with us. So I really
Well, thank
appreciate
you.
that.
Well, thank you for giving me the award too. I'm really flattered. It was on my bucket list. So now I've been to the World Economic Forum at Davos. I've won a Shorty. I've been on the New York Times bestseller list. I'm running out of stuff. I can die soon. So.
Boy, we'll have to invent some kind of new honor just to give you a reason to live.
All
That's
right.
all.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Greg.
All right, thanks again, Guy. Thanks
All right,
everyone who
take
tuned
care.
in. I
Bye.
highly recommend Play with Canva. Go to the Shorty list to find out how you can join Guy in being a Shorty Award winner, and we'll see you for the next Hangout. Thanks again.